Mental health professionals of Reddit, what is the saddest case of wow, this person really effed up because of how they were treated during their childhood you have ever come across? I worked at a psychiatric hospital for guys who had successfully argued not guilty for reasons of insanity pleas. One guy had murdered his neighbor after they had some kind of normal neighborly dispute. He told me, in detail, how he grew up on a farm and his dad would kill one of his dogs in front of him every time he acted out as a child. Next story. I once had a patient that offered herself to be raped by her stepfather so he would not instead rape her little sister, while her mother was passed out drunk in the sofa. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget this. Next story. I've been working at a mental health facility for about 30 years now, and I once was counseling a man who was held down and tickled for minutes upon minutes. The man now has a paranoia of tank tops and shorts because he believes it leaves him vulnerable. Next story. I'm not a mental health professional, but back in 2010, while I was a volunteer worker for a Brazilian NGO, sometimes they would send us to different locations and countries to support some project or to learn from it and apply the concept back to Brazil. One time I was sent to Chile to help out in a community project. And I was supposed to get my meals in an orphanage near there. But that orphanage was not a normal one, it was specific for kids that had been abused. At the beginning some of them were afraid of me, I'm a fat black guy. But after a while they got used to see me around. Before coming there, they explained all the details and how to behave, but nothing can actually prepare you for that. I saw a 7-year-old that was trying to seduce me, because she was taught by her dad to act this way her whole life. I saw another that was constantly raped through her life, and refused to smile, cause her father always told her to smile while he was raping. One of them was completely silent, and the staff didn't know exactly what happened to her. The list goes on. And it is depressing and morbid. I don't have a word powerful enough to describe what happened to those kids. And the worst part is that most of the things that happened to them was caused by their own parents. That was too effed up. I was supposed to get my meals there for the whole month. But I couldn't. I started to pay my meals directly from my pocket. Their reality was too much for me to deal with. Next story. Had a kid show up in my office saying he had not eaten all day. He missed his bus and just seemed to not want to leave. I call home and mom was not answering. The parents were divorced, so I called dad. It was about 8 p.m. by this point. Dad answers and is obviously drunk off of his butt at a bar. I heard the noise and music. I explain the situation and the dad says he will get someone to drive him to come pick him up. He never showed up. About 10 p.m. on a Tuesday or some crap now, so I call the police and they assist. Learned that the mother had overdosed on heroin and was found dead in the house. The father never showed up, and I was told he never tried to be a part of the kid's life. This kid had some terrible facial disfiguration from birth due to the mother using drugs and drinking during pregnancy. I have no idea how the kid was never removed from custody. I spent a lot of time with him because he didn't like people looking at him throughout the school day. I didn't give a F about his grades, I just wanted him to enjoy something in life. We would watch old WWF clips because he loved wrestling. He's dead now. Killed himself. I switched careers after I heard that. F'd me up. I tried to help. Next story. I work with the homeless population. I would say over half the clients I work with have childhood trauma. The drugs, alcohol and mental illness in this population is incredibly high, but the common denominator is more often than not childhood abuse/neglect. There is an incredible level of loneliness and hopelessness that many of my clients experience, and many of them are haunted by their past or still living in it. Next story. Psychiatrist here, first year, just graduated medical school. Saw a case on the inpatient adolescent unit of a 14-year-old boy with suspected DMDD, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. He was admitted after blowing out of his most recent foster placement. In a fit of rage he broke TVs, tables, walls. He attacked the police officers called to the house, biting and scratching at them. He sounded like an overall piece of crap, bratty kid. Come to learn he was born with NAS, neonatal abstinence syndrome, to a mother abusing 4 and inhaled heroin during all 3 trimesters. He was born in acute opiate withdrawal requiring methadone replacement therapy for the first year of infancy. Fast forward 14 years with that baseline level of neurologic functioning and you get a kid who seemingly explodes for no reason, when in reality his prefrontal cortex is years behind, causing his impulsivity to be almost unrestrained. Sad case, cool kid though. He kicked my butt in Smash for most days. Next story. I don't know the rest of the details, but there's a guy that was taken from his parents. One of the reasons cited was witnessed his parents ritually sacrifice a dog. He deserves all the disability checks that he gets. No child should see that crap. Next story. Clinical psychologist here. It would indeed be unethical to describe details here. However, what gets me the most sad are the tales of childhood sexual abuse. As adults, these souls are still wrestling with a myriad of self-esteem related traumas. Child abuse crosses an ocean of time to steal the joy from even the simplest of daily life moments and activities. If anyone out there reads this, please reach out and get some help. With quality therapy you can reclaim your personal power and begin to thrive. Peace. Next story. One of my first cases when I first started in the mental health field, and I'll never forget. I was providing therapy to a young girl who was pooping on herself after holding it in for as long as she could. Mom originally thought it was some kind of anxiety or fear of the toilet, but after a couple more sessions I found out that the girl was being sexually abused by her stepfather and pooping felt like penetration to her, so in order to avoid that sensation she would hold it in as long as possible. It was heartbreaking to find that out and a hell of an introduction to the field. Edit, not sure if this is okay to do here, but as a way to help people that don't have access to mental health services, I started providing free mental health advice / answering psychology related questions a few months ago through the form of social media and videos. If anyone is in need of assistance, feel free to inbox me and I will provide you with my information. Thank you. Next story. So many parents seem to think their divorce doesn't affect their kids. Can't go into specifics, but one kid ended up with conversion disorder because their parents' divorce was so horrendous. Parents, don't drag your kids into your mess. Keep it civil, don't let kids witness the nasty, drawn out stuff. They're not pawns in your chess battle with your ex, they are your children, and you will give them lifelong issues if you treat them as points to be won. Next story. While doing my psych clinicals over 20 years ago, we had this poor patient that was so abused as child. This took place in the 70s. Her father had a casket at his house. I can't remember if he worked at a funeral home or how he ended up with a casket. He drilled a hole just big enough so a straw could go through it. He would put his daughter in there and close the lid and gave her a straw to put through the hole so she can breathe through the straw. He left her in there for extended of time. The poor girl was destroyed. As the psychotherapist was telling our group the story, our group were in tears. How can someone be this effed up to do this to their own child? The poor girl is so messed up and cannot live a normal life due to all the trauma this has caused her. Edit, many asked how she was destroyed. This abuse took place over her childhood till adulthood. In the 70s, child abuse was overlooked and often not believed by the child. Who would believe that a person would have a casket in their home? She was placed in a lockdown facility and as students, we never had her as a patient. The psychotherapist explained that she did not meet her milestones and acted as if she was in the wild in a way. She was probably oxygen deprived that also affected her brain. The poor girl basically grew up throughout the years being put in that dark airtight casket with a straw to breathe through. It was so long ago and cannot remember the details how she turned out other than she is in this locked facility and has trigger points that sets her off. Our clinical group was crying all day after hearing this case. This broke me and realized that I cannot ever be a psych nurse. I am sure she suffered other abuse. Most of the patients in the psych facility were from an abusive parents. The next population was drugs, alcohol and chemical imbalance. To be honest, I felt in my own mechanism. I shut down after hearing the casket and straw bit. I could not handle it and felt sick all day. Thank you for the gold star to the kind person.